Squadron Leader Fernando Gonzalez. I'm in the Air Force with a rank like that. You can't be anywhere else. I'm an aeronautical aerospace avionics engineer. Currently the chief engineer for aeronautical life support equipment. But I've had a lot of stuff done in the past for the last decade in electronic warfare. To that end, I'm also president of the Australian chapter of the Association of Old Crows, which deal with electronic warfare and information operations and cyber warfare. The short of it is that I'm heavily involved in capability using technology. And one of my passions, one of those things I kicked up to some great activity, to some good momentum, was as member of the Engineers Australia SA Division Committee, with a portfolio that had to do with community engagement, but very strongly for my own passion, which was to engage children at a very early age into a technology career. My concern has been that we've been softening the science and technology topics in the primary schools to a point where children, if they at all had an inkling or an inclination towards science and technology, would at first be embracing it using the classic springs and rubber bands and water and ramps and scales, all that good fun we get into in the early stages. Then we find ourselves getting into high school and we're suddenly given a whiteboard and a textbook, and it wasn't quite the same experience. So I think we need to fascinate these children, particularly when you look at the psychology. Children will embrace something at an age window between 7 and 13 or so. If you leave it any longer than that, they're not going to want to change their minds. It's part of their makeup. Whereas you've heard the saying that women can change their mind at the drop of a hat. Well, actually they can. It's part of the way they're made up. So it's a different problem altogether. Not quite as severe as it is for young people, young boys. So we need to fascinate them early on. And part of that is to get them fascinated in technology in a sustainable way where they will continue to engage in an education and a productive career that are going to promote and sustain a technological industry for this country and many others who are in the same boat. So that's my soapbox to say that what we're doing here is fascinating children at an early age, getting them to understand what fun technology can be, and then assisting them in having that perspective in choosing an academic career that will then lead to an industry career in science and technology, where it's sadly lacking right now.
If I can just jump in here with a quick question to Fernando. Being a member of the Defense Department, how does this science and technology and programming stand in terms of the latest news about cyber warfare? You know the latest everybody see on television. There's, I think, 4 people were caught hacking into projects in America from China. So how does this affect Australia?
Well, there's a lot about cyber warfare that I can't discuss, but what I can say is that on the whole, as we look at the situation, there is an increasing demand for the skills and the aptitude to engage in this kind of defensive activity against wholesale hacking. There's always been a criminal element that does this, but when it becomes organised at national levels, that becomes a very serious threat as well. It's a much more highly resourced threat. To that end, we need to be clever about the kind of people we need to populate those particular functions that we need to establish for ourselves to look after these things. And it's not just a defence concern. You'll find industry, there's some lifeblood within the Australian instrument, if you like, the Australian structure, which is really more inclined, along with defence, goes into security, goes into border protection, goes into large industrial advantages that we may have now. We have some primary industries as well as some niche manufacturing industries that could be devastated by the kind of industrial espionage that takes place. So it goes way beyond defence into all sorts of national security elements.
Absolutely. In fact, I was leading to the fact that cyber warfare can basically destroy jobs. Essentially, if they steal your IP on a project worth $1 billion with a lot of jobs at stake, that's how jobs are being destroyed.
Well, Peng, you mentioned IP, and I have a view on that particular. That actually brings up a point. As an export, Australia doesn't have much beyond, relatively speaking, much beyond primary industry. We still dig coal out of the ground, we still dig uranium, we still dig, we still grow wheat and canola, a whole bunch of things. But they're primary exports. When we look at manufacturing and the skills involved there, we don't do as well. We have a level of a cost of living, a level of economic advantage in many ways with other countries that don't actually make us competitive. To that end, the one export we do have that we can develop that can be protected to some degree is our IP. And in order to have intellectual property as an export, it needs to be protected. It needs to be grown as a capability, and that takes technical aptitude and a level of education that recognises where the problems lie. And we need to support that. And there's a particular angle that I like about how we've been supporting this entire effort with the STEMSEL Foundation's effort to spread the word, if you like. Even at the university levels, when we have things like the robotics competitions and people consider entering these things, there's a very clear divide between the mechanical aptitudes and the software aptitudes. And just recently I did the same thing at University of Adelaide, and there is that message we give them that if you're a mechanical engineer, well, you may call yourself, broadly speaking, a mechatronics engineer, but there's that software element that becomes a real challenge if you're not across it entirely. So you need to look at those resources in your project management and say to yourself, well, I have skills in mechanical engineering. My programming skills aren't necessarily where they should be. Let's find the easiest possible way to make that programming work. And we've got a proven product here, which is, if you like, where the rubber hits the road for the STEMSEL Foundation in spreading an easy way of embracing technology through the electronics kits. So that's something that we have as a vehicle to spread the message about how we can get people into that technical aptitude.
And
yeah, sure, go ahead. Hello, Christian. Oh, okay. It's a happy association that began back in, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was 2010, was it? At the Adelaide Royal Show. At the time, I was fairly new to the Engineers Australia Division Committee activity. I just joined Engineers Australia at that level, at the local governance level, and something else I always do is engage in wherever children can be fascinated, not necessarily by technology, but also by my defence work. So there I was at the Adelaide Show, talking about Air Force and the Air Force Cadets, which I'm a commanding officer for the Cadet Squadron down at the RAAF base here. And public engagement is something I do, and you couldn't keep me away from it. At that time, I was walking through the pavilion and I found an Engineers Australia temporary tattoo transfer. It looks like a sticker. And I got a little excited because I thought, well, I haven't seen anything here about Engineers Australia, and I'd like to see where this is all being promoted. I sort of took a break from the stand and walked around and found that there was a really cool robotics floor space being put together, where you had things like Sparky, and you had this tall man with a whiteboard and basically a smart board, and he had his headset mic on, and he was running a class to all these young kids in the middle of the Adelaide Show, and I thought, this is amazing. And the automation that I saw across these benches as these kids were just showing off all this good stuff they were doing at such incredibly young ages, that was the beginning of a very happy friendship. And since then, we've been working together to continue to fascinate and engage young people, right through to the show last year, for instance, where we had a very significant competition, a competitive move, where the winners were actually flown away to a city as a prize, very nicely supported by the Adelaide Show, and again, that will happen this year. So there will be formal judging with some very high-grade, high-profile judges. As I say, that's where it started and where it continues to roll on. There's a fantastic way of growing this idea, and if it's a good idea, it will grow on its own. And today you now have a very mature organisation, if you like, with a lot of energy, but still a long way to go. So the STEMSEL Foundation, as an idea, as a captivating logo, if you like, is there to identify what we're doing here. And then you have eLabtronics as the working arm, where it's actually getting out there and doing the work for people. So commendable effort, particularly for Peng, who's been tying this together for so long now, putting himself on the line to make this happen. 5 years to see this through. So you've got a fantastic team amongst us all of this. It's been a pleasure just to be a part of it and ride along for a fantastic ride.
Well, if I can just quickly jump in again, Christian, if you want a missile warhead, just ring Fernando. He'll bring one to your workshop.
Yeah, it won't have the explosive payload though.
Thank you.
No worries at all. It's been a real pleasure. Good luck and have fun, and tell us all about it when it's over.
Thank you. Well done. That was good.
How many of these have you got left?
Another few thousand.